This is a good, yeah, you're right. This is a perfect segue. Final Fantasy 16 is
is a really good game. It's a 5 out of 5 for me personally.
5 out of 5. You said
5 out of 5
five
personally
out of
for
five,
me.
10 out of 10. Yeah,
I fuck with it.
Final Fantasy 16 is, I think it's everything that's wrong with gaming.
Explain yourself now.
Okay,
Explain
so check
yourself
this out.
before I go on my diatribe, bro. I need you to
So
explain yourself.
So check this out. I think that Final Fantasy 16 suffers and is a direct result of something like The Last of Us, where story and cinematic and spectacle sort of take front row. And not to say that Last of Us has bad gameplay, because it has really good gameplay.
I was about
But
to
I
say
feel
I gotta
like
disagree with you on this one.
but I think what it does is that it takes this formula of like, oh, all gamers want is like a really strong story and like flashy cinematics and all this, and those are good, like Asura's Wrath or like the Ninja Storm games. The story modes have really cool like flashy fight scenes. But I think what it does is that it never innovates on any of those, and then in fact I think it strips back a lot of things that could have elevated it. And so I think that people right now are really enamored with like the spectacle. Like that's all I hear. Like the story's so good, the characters. But I'm like, but that's just a movie. I
That's what I'm
don't.
saying. Yeah.
I love film, and I go to my movies to get character and story. I don't go to my movies to get gameplay. So when I mean, and to add, Final Fantasy 16 does have good gameplay, but I think it has bad pacing. Whereas I was 10 hours in, and I had this limited move set, and it started to open up, but I was like,
I'm
I'm
10
already
hours
like
in. I like in Final Fantasy 12 at 10 hours in. You're at you're with what's the bunny people? What are they called?
the
The
Vieira.
Yeah, you're in the Vieira hometown.
Yeah,
You're a
and
quarter through the game.
yeah, and you have multiple characters with different builds. Here, you're just the one character, so it feels very like stripped back. It's not a bad game. I don't think it's a bad game, but I just feel like people are really, and I see this a lot.
Recency bias is kicking this game's ass right now
Yeah,
because I'm probably going to agree with you on a lot of this because I don't think I will even because I know New Game Plus is like Final Fantasy mode and it's harder and all this stuff.
yeah,
I don't think I'll ever replay Final Fantasy 16 unless they
yeah,
drop like a DLC because I feel complete. I don't need to play anymore.
yeah,
And now that you say that, it really does bring in a point because I do say it's an almost perfect game, and the thing that I hated about the game was the world, the open world, quote unquote. It like I like the story. I'm okay with that. If you're gonna be a character action game, be a character action game. So I didn't mind that it didn't give a fuck about the RPG elements, though I didn't like that I could use all my fire abilities against a firebomb and it doesn't have like reduced, like there's no like resistances or anything like that. Like
mm-hmm.
a lot of stuff that I felt like you could leave that shit in. Like even Strangers of Paradise has like resistances. Like you can leave that in. Like
Yeah,
small stuff like that. Like if I use the ice power, I should be able to use the fire power to make people, you know what I'm saying, or the lightning power to electrocute you or some shit. I should have
yeah.
what's the word I'm
Like
looking for? Like Genshin Impact.
elemental weaknesses.
Nah, like when they like connect, like you know what I'm saying, like when you throw water on a person, then you would switch to your
Yeah.
lightning person, and it would like do a big AOE of lightning. Like I feel like that should be standard.
Oh,
You know what I'm
that would
saying?
be cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. No,
I
that's
feel like that should be
exactly.
standard.
Yeah, that's something. This. Yeah, there's something about Final Fantasy. I mean, I've only played about 15, 20. I think I'm 17 hours roughly.
You're deep
I actually.
in, and you're
So
deep
yeah,
in. Like
yeah.
20
No,
hours
I've.
is not deep because I think I finished at like 40 hours. So you're deep in.
Yeah,
It's not
no,
like you
I've.
like can't say like, oh, you only saw the first icon fight. You can't say shit. Nah,
Yeah.
you've seen the whole game essentially.
So like yeah, and I'm kind of just like, well, it feels like this game is really a result of so many external factors. One, that so many people are so into story and characters, at the behest of something like God of War, and Last of Us. Like those are award-winning games. This is like a game of the year. It's like Oscar bait, where certain movies do certain things to kind of like
you put the nail on the coffin. This is a game of the year-ified Final
yeah.
Fantasy. They did everything in their power from like to be not Final Fantasy 15 and 13 that they were like, okay, we got to just make a good game.
And they sold their soul in a way to get some of the success. Not that it's a bad game. Again, it's not a bad game at all.
But you got to keep that status of being the best RPG franchise. You have to keep that status. And with 15, they didn't have that. 14, a lot of people were like, it's an MMO. I mean, it's still, one of the best MMOs, but
right.
It's a hit or miss with people. We played Final Fantasy 14. We bounced right off because we were like, I'm not about to pay monthly for this. Fuck this. No, I'm good.
There's a time sink, and not only that, but I feel like this game is also just like it could have included those elemental weaknesses. It could have done a bit more RPG-ness. It could have.
You could have allowed me to equip my party members. You could have allowed me.
Could have
even if you didn't do that, you could have let me have the dog at least.
Like I'm saying, I just felt like they really just scaled it back to the point that they didn't need to. Like they could have had, okay, fine, action game, that's fine, right? But then they take out your ability to. I mean, you only get one armor set. All your armor is the same. So it's like, why couldn't at least when I.
Yeah, you don't feel any difference. Every time I upgraded my armor, I never felt like I was like, wow, that's a big difference. Compared to Final Fantasy 12 or 15, when I would equip a new weapon, I would be like, wow. Other than the cosmetic, I would be like, okay, this weapon does sleep damage or some shit.
Yeah. So there was a lot of let's get rid of all this and make it as simple as possible with a good story.
Especially with the assisted controls. Yeah. You could have got
I don't
worse.
know. It's just, I feel like people aren't, and then people are making the argument like, oh, well, every Final Fantasy is different. Every Final Fantasy, it's like, no. Every Final Fantasy is different, but there is a core.
Yes.
There's a core to it, right? And there's a lot of game mechanics that are kept the same, and you're gonna have the leveling up, you're gonna have equipment, you're gonna have
a party, you're gonna have a little bit of building with them.
Yeah, and to say that this is people are saying that it's not Final Fantasy, and then people are arguing well, every Final Fantasy is chained. It's like, yeah, but this Final Fantasy literally is not Final Fantasy anymore.
From a story standpoint,
right?
This is a very Final Fantasy story.
Yes.
In setting at least, it's a very Final Fantasy. But gameplay wise, I can definitely agree with you on that. Even coming from somebody that just loves hack and slash games in general, it don't hit. It's not hard. That's the main consensus, is that it's not hard. The parry timing is super. You can literally see an attack coming and just spam R1 and you won't get hit. Long as you keep tapping that R1 button. When you get all of the abilities, it's literally just square, and then I'm going to spam my ability, swap to the next icon, spam my ability, swap to the next icon, spam my abilities. There's nothing really to it. It's very easy. And I had more fun experimenting and theory crafting and being like, oh, that juggles, and then if I hit him with a charge magic, he'll bounce in the air, then I can jump and I can grab him. But that's what I do in Devil May Cry, and that's why I loved it. But if I wanted to do that, I would just play Devil May Cry.
Yeah. Devil May Cry 2, or Devil May Cry as well, the more recent one, 5, is there's so much. First off, you have 3 characters, okay? And then each character has some sick ass, very, very different combos. And they all have a gimmick, and you play to that. And this game, they could have done that. I'm sorry. I just feel like they really, it's just
especially because half of your party is just like you. They have the special magic summon abilities. So why couldn't you have let me play as Jill and she'd be more graceful and do rapier stabs? Or why can't I switch to the dog real quick and do dog combos? I feel like there should have been. Okay, let me ask you a question. How much did your party make an impact when you played from your time playing? Other than Torgal.
I feel like maybe there was once or twice where I might have been getting I think I was getting my ass kicked, and because they were there, they were able to distract an enemy. So I was able to like get my own shit like cleared and go help them. But other than that, they were kind of like they're whatever. They don't really do much. Jill will freeze enemies.
Once
So
you'll see the random ice hit like the last enemy before you can kill them. Some stupid shit like that. Yeah.
But like it was yeah. And then also I just feel like pacing. I don't know. This is a Final Fantasy 16 game, and I feel like there could have just been so much more. Like there could have been mini games or something. Like
there's no mini game. There's no
all you do is fucking fight, and you don't have that many options. At least 15 hours in, I feel like I don't even have that many options where I'm not already bored.
Yeah, because the thing is, once you get the rest of the powers, they're all the same. It's just like, okay, do you want this giant ability or this ability? Like, because every element or whatever has this does health damage, this does break damage, this is the big move, and then this is your little utility move. But like, it's all the same shit. Like, you can flip and flop, you can mix and match, and when you master abilities, because by the end of the game, you're gonna have way more than enough skill points to master any ability that you want. You can just mix and match any of them, regardless of the thing. So it doesn't really matter. You can just do whatever you want. Use whatever abilities you like the most. It doesn't punish you for speccing into one particular tree. Like if I was like, I want to be only Phoenix. It doesn't punish you for that, being like, oh, well, this boss is weak to Titan. But regardless of the combat, because that at least is good.
The combat is solid.
Yeah, the main thing for me that annoyed me was the open zone. Isn't that what they called it? I remember seeing some interviews where they were saying it was open zone and not open world.
Yeah, it's definitely not open world. Yeah, no.
The open zone and the side quests. They have this ugly thing where they have like a plus marker on the side quests that give you like the important side quests that give you like unlockables. Like, oh, you do this side quest, you get a chocobo, or you do this one, you get some equipment or whatever. Like, it made the rest of the game feel like shit because I didn't want to do the rest of the side quests, because you do 2 side quests and it's like slay 3 bears in this corner of the world, talk to this lady, and then the side quest is complete. It's like, no, I don't want to do that. If I wanted to do that, I will play Final Fantasy XIV.
I was playing and I was commenting to Elise that I was like, yeah, that's how you can tell this was made by the MMO devs, because some of these side quests
You're like,
are
just
definitely
pick 4
MMO
flowers.
side quests.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but the story is really good, right? And I think that people are getting caught up that having a good story and solid gameplay, but I really think it is stripped back, bare bones, and this almost felt like it was a good movie, and they're like, well, let's just like put in some gameplay, I guess. And then that's it.
Like, if you were to give somebody, like, because I remember playing Final Fantasy 15 before this game, and I was like, it says as soon as you start the game, a Final Fantasy for new and old time fans. And that is the worst Final Fantasy to pick up as your first Final Fantasy. That game is not the one to pick up.
Yeah.
I would say Final Fantasy 16 is the one to pick up if you wanted to be a new Final Fantasy fan. If you've never played a Final Fantasy, this is the one to play, because at least story-wise and gameplay-wise, it's not as challenging. Because sometimes, even in 12, there was a couple bosses I was like, I don't know how I'm going to beat this. I need to grind.
There was like an RPG, like there was RPG mechanics in that where you really had to sit back and think like, okay, I need to retool who's doing what and when. Vaughn
is my dragoon / thief. I need to spec him into this, and I need to go here to get this. I need to do this.
And it really made me miss RPGs playing that game, which is actually why I bought, and not that it's a really good RPG, I just kind of
wanted it.
Yeah, like I impulse bought it, but Soul Hackers 2 was like $15 on Amazon. And I was like,
so mad when the GameStop sale. I was thinking about that shit. I was like, I should have bought fucking Soul Hackers instead of Tales of Arise. Shit.
Oh, and honestly, I wanted to go. Okay, so check this out. So there's a couple things I've been thinking about with Final Fantasy 16. So one, it reminded me of how I felt playing the beginning stages of Star Ocean, A Divine Hope, I think it's called.
That's the new one,
Star
right?
Ocean. Yeah. So when I first got my PS5, that was the first RPG that I got. And I played it for a little bit. and I was like, this just feels like booty. Like it was basically. It has like the traversal feeling of Street Fighter 6, where it's just like awkward, but you're like, well, whatever, it's fine.
I'll get used to it type shit.
Yeah. But now that I look back on it, it was actually good, right? And like the combat, it was a little bit light on the RPG mechanics as well. It was like really heavy into its story. And I guess you could say Tales of Arise was sort of like that, but it still had a lot more RPG-ness to it,
Yeah, because even from what I've played of Divine Force with the demo, it at least had like a skill tree. You click it, had a giant thing, you can spec into it, you can spec which moves each of your party members can do. You can change to your party members.
Yes.
Like you can do a lot more.
There is exploration. When you go to different areas, you do feel like you're exploring, and it's kind of worth it. There's hard to reach places, and it's clunky, but it feels. Honestly, I want to play that again. But anyways, with Final Fantasy 16, when I was playing this, I'm just like, this is beautiful, but it's all set dressing. Like I'm gonna go over here. There's gonna be something I don't care about or don't need. I don't have to. I just walk over here.
I'm gonna walk over here to pick up a potion, open this chest to give me 20 wormites.
Yeah, like it was. I don't know, and the demo really sold me too. I was like, oh my god, I was thinking in my mind like,
this is going
wow, this story's
when the open world hits.
And I wasn't even expecting like that much more than what Final Fantasy has offered previously. I was just expecting like, oh, there's gonna be a skill tree, maybe. I mean, we already knew that we weren't gonna be able to play as other people, but I thought maybe like there'd be different armor pieces, or like I thought because they were cutting all that stuff out, that they were going to really focus on giving you a Clive that you could really customize and make him feel like this is your Clive.
Yes.
And maybe not with like crazy armor pieces, because not all previous Final Fantasies haven't done like the whole like, oh,
changing everything when you change.
Yeah, like exactly. Like they still look the same, but I thought maybe they could lean into that. I thought there would be like some sort of give and take, but instead it was all taking away.
Yeah, and the only thing that's different is your sword. And even then, depending on the cutscene, it'll go back to the basic sword.
Yeah. The story's really good, but I think that people
they're high. They're still high and drunk off the story. Off the story and the boss fights. Because I will say that Titan boss fight is one of the top 3 bosses I've ever seen in a game. Ashura's Wrath got the number 1, but that shit is OC, bro.
I actually was playing. I played it a couple days ago, but I haven't gotten to the Titan boss fight. But no, yeah, it's great. I think some of the boss fights are framed a little too closely, and I can't see what's going on. I don't know. If
a lot of them are like that.
I don't know if that's my old eyes, or I'm just like I don't know what's happening here.
There's a couple fights, especially towards after Titan, that I was like, I don't even know what the fuck I did, but I won.
Right.
Even the hunts, I was like, I don't know what I just fought or how it worked, but I won somehow off of just sheer willpower.
It does feel like baby's first Final Fantasy in some sense.
And character action game. It does feel like that.
Yeah. And I was even thinking like, because I've been trying to think of an RPG or something to get Elise into,
This would be the one if you were like, I just want to watch you play Final Fantasy. Because the story is good enough that she's like, all right, I'm in there. If she's like, forget something, it's like, who is this? You can be like, don't forget hold touchpad. You can pull it up right there and look at them.
Yeah. Which is honestly the most innovative thing that game has done, and I do have to applaud the team. That's
Every
a
game
genius.
needs that shit because that shit.
I loved it.
Perfect.
I love just going into like who's who and the compendium or the bestiary, and it's cool.
Though eventually they do add like a second person that like explains what's going on in the world right now. Which I thought was weird because it's like we have a whole person that explains what's happening in the world right now, but it's like an actual person that has like a fucking diagram. It's like this person loves this person hates this person, they're connected by this. Like they have a whole like thing, like a whole person that's just dedicated to just that. Like after like the second half of the game, it's very weird.
I wonder if the development team really was like, fuck, we really want people to know what's going. Like,
it's not that hard to know what's going on because you're just watching half the game. So it's like I kind of get what's going on, but
right. That's true. There are a lot of cutscenes too.
Yeah, if you don't know what they're saying, you're going to know what they're saying. It's kind of like Game of Thrones, where like at first when you're watching it, you're like, "What the fuck is a Lannister? What is all this?" But the more you watch, the more you play and shit like that, you'll understand it. by the time that they bring it up, and you're like, okay, that's whatever.
Yeah. So speaking of Final Fantasy 16, just to go back to Spider-Man, I was like, should I drop this and just fucking come back to it when
Yes.
I'm less?
Yes, drop it now. Wait for a couple patches or like a DLC or some shit to drop or whatever. Pick it back up when everybody's not like, oh my god, Clive, your titties are so big, you know.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna drop it. And again, I don't want anybody to get the impression that I don't like the game, that I think it's a bad game, that it's not a Final Fantasy game. I just really think that the praise that it's getting and all this, I think it's a little overrated. And I think that it's definitely, I think it's an imbalanced game. And I think it's also interesting because when you look at it as a product of the just game industry, when you look at games like God of War, games like The Last of Us, you know, where it's like almost clear that they're like, okay, here's the story, make the story the focus. And even God of War is more of a Final Fantasy game.
I was about to say, as soon as you mentioned God of War, I was thinking that, like, yeah, you're right, because I did beat God of War during the break in between BOTR seasons.
Ragnarok. Did you do Ragnarok?
I didn't beat Ragnarok, just
okay.
Just the 2018 God of War, and
yeah,
I can feel it. There's like a certain genre, like what you're saying, like this game fits in that genre of this was made specifically for the Game of the Year awards.
Yeah,
and that's it. Like if you played it out of context, like playing God of War, I was like, I like God of War 3 better.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of people are going to see with Final Fantasy 16, because right now everybody's like, yo, this is cool, the spectacle, everything is getting you like hype. But for the people that's going to play this 2 or 3 years down the line, they're going to be like,
right,
whatever.
Yeah, I think really what bothers me is just the argument that, oh, every Final Fantasy has done something different. What do you mean this is not Final Fantasy? I'm just like,
but see, every Final Fantasy has still been an RPG.
Right, exactly. It's not okay.
At least mainline wise.
Like think about Call of Duty, right?
7
if all of a sudden
has more, is the same combat, but more RPG elements. All they had to do was copy and paste.
It's just super, super, super weird, and I don't think any Final Fantasy has shifted genres. That's a whole different thing. When your Final Fantasy game, or when your franchise is shifting to a different genre, like okay. Example, we were talking about Silent Hill, right? So when Silent Hill Book of Memories, that Vita game, went from survival horror, you know, to fucking looter, to like looter.
Fuck? This is so interesting.
Like action, like
I wish there was a Vita
that's
emulator.
Different. It's so fucking different. Like now you're just kind of using the name. Like this could have been named something else. It could have been fucking.
Final Fantasy
Icon Fantasy or something. I don't know. It could have been like a whole different game. And I think
like how Stranger, that'd be like calling Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy 16 and then calling Final Fantasy Tactics Final Fantasy 8.
Right. Yes.
It's like
exactly.
these are separate games. These are its own shit. Like you could have like you're right. You could have called this.
It's sort of like, I don't know. There's a lot of, and especially the one of my favorite podcasts, which is HPMP, like they're talking about it and everyone's praising it, and I'm just like, really, you guys, the RPG people?
I'm not gonna lie, because they be pessimistic as shit, bro. I was thinking to myself at first when I was watching the pre-release, I was like, I don't know, man. They sounded like they hating.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, they right.
But like they loved it, or they are loving it, you know, and I'm just like, you guys, how? This is not an RPG. You guys are talking about a Devil May Cry light. You know, it's a DMC light or light.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, we are about to play 2 very diverse JRPGs for Back of the Rack. Yeah, like the rest of the season is technically JRPGs.
I guess it is.
Yeah. So we're about to play like a little gauntlet of just different compared to 16.
I'm saying this right now, and I feel like I've always been on the opposite side too with Back of the Rack. I'm saying like essentially that Final Fantasy 16 went too far in its changes, but at the same time, I love Musashi Samurai Legends because
it went too far. It is changes.
Yeah. Or well, like I never played the first one to begin with, so I can understand why some people like would, be like, oh, it's great
Yeah,
or
and
whatever.
I guess that's why I'm a little more appreciative of it, because I come
Yeah.
from a more hack and slash background, and the only Final Fantasy I played before Final Fantasy XII, was the City of Final Fantasy demo, which is a hack and slash essentially, which is essentially Final Fantasy 16, but 20 years
Yeah.
later. So I mean, I guess for me, it's easier to digest because I'm not a long-standing fan. Like, I've not even played any of the turn-based Final Fantasies, so I don't really know how that works. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
I've only played 12, 15, 16, 7 remake.
Final Fantasy 16 is still Final Fantasy. It's just way too stripped back, way too simple, way too easy, way too bare bones.
Yeah, because when you play an RPG, you want to role play.
Depth. I want some depth.
Yeah, you want some systems where you can look at the screen and go, okay, if I +5 to that, okay, then we can do that. Like, you want that when you play your RPGs. You don't want to just mash the button.
Yeah, and even if they were going to lean into the DMC light of it, they really could have done more. DMC has some really interesting mechanics. They could have really First off, why can't Clive have a different weapon? How easy?
Hello?
How cool would it have been if he had like a mace or like a fucking a spear? Why can't you switch weapons? Yeah, I love spears too.
Give me a halberd. Give me a dual sword. Wait, hold on. He does get dual swords towards the end.
Okay.
But for like one,
but that's it.
It's for only for one move.
Oh my god!
You press the move and then you get dual swords, but that's it. So I mean, a little different.
Dude, after the first 5, after the demo, probably the first 8 hours, I was like, oh, I'm kind of getting after my second icon or my third, maybe I can't remember.
Second or third.
I was just like, this is it, huh? Fuck.
Yeah,
and that's what I was telling you,
That's why I was saying, you're good to stop it, because you're right. Unless you wanted to experience the rest of the story, you've played the entire game, because by that time you've done hunts, right? Mm-hmm. Have you done? Yeah, you've done a hunt. You've done.
Oh wait, no, I have not done a hunt. I just got introduced to them, but I have not done one yet.
Oh well, it's not gonna be like Final Fantasy XII. I can tell you that. It's not gonna.
Imagine
be like
Final
that.
Fantasy XII with this story though, with this production. Tell me that wouldn't be, because that story was.
That's what I was thinking when I saw Sid, when he was my name. When he said his name was Sid, I was like, yeah, he's giving me BOTR vibes right here.
Yeah, I thought
this is BOTR, bro. This shit is cool, but it's cool because just like Sid's daughter's name in Final Fantasy 16, the game's kind of mid.
Speaking of Sid, his voice actor is also in Diablo 4.
Which I didn't know until you told me just now.
Yeah. And funny enough, I heard his voice first in Diablo 4, obviously, because that game came out before. And then when I heard him as Sid in FF16, I was like, this does not fit his voice or his demeanor, because in Diablo 4, he's like this old curmudgeon kind of this grumpy old man. But he fucking it's so different. He's like this handsome, youngish.
I'm Sid with this deep ass voice. Whoa, this shit's crazy.
And
Every time he came on screen, I was like, damn, that nigga voice is crazy.
Yeah, super, super deep. And that
super
character, the character model just doesn't seem like it would have that voice to me. I don't know. I don't know if you felt that way. It's a good voice, right?
I feel like it kind of fits a little bit. But I mean, to be fair, I didn't think that Clive's voice fit for a lot of it. I liked his teenage voice a lot, but I didn't like his adult voice. His adult voice felt very bitch made to me. And he's a very hard chisel. He's killing people, bro. There's blood every scene. Yeah. It's oh yeah, you murdered that person, and I don't really feel that vibe. But with Sid, I at least feel that vibe. There's one scene. You fought Garuda, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you've seen the scene where he's I need to find the masked person, and he's like, well, find the masked person, and if they didn't do it, then kill yourself. that line
Yeah.
delivery, I was like, okay, this voice fits him now. Because at
Right.
first I was like,